Hi. Over the course of the last couple of years, I've had occasion to contact my representatives, both here in New York and also my representatives to the federal government and others. I've worked on people's campaigns, and when I was dismayed over the nomination of Neil Gorsuch to the Supreme Court, John McCain graciously sent me a note stating why he was going to vote for Neil Gorsuch, and then he also invited me to contact him whenever I thought there was a problem. And he promised he would listen. And true to his word, when the ACA was going before Congress, I wrote to John McCain. This was right before he announced that he had a brain tumor. And I sent him 20 bullet points of why I thought John McCain should vote yes for the Affordable Care Act. And he did. And I was very proud of him. He is memorable in my mind because he is one of the only senators, congressmen, representatives, council people to have ever personally gotten back to me. So I'll never forget John McCain. I have a very, very good feeling about his respect for other people. Madeleine Albright was like that too. I met her at a luncheon at the local JCC, and we chatted for a while, and I chatted with her people as well. And that too was very heartwarming because she felt I belonged in government. So I've had a history of contacting people and having them be receptive and certainly listening to what I have to say. That hasn't been the case since 2016. When the Mueller report came out, the redacted version, I wrote this book. It's a synopsis of the Mueller report because I felt it was the most important document of our time. It showed the collusion between Trump, his campaign, his finance committee, and WikiLeaks, Julian Assange, and the Russian Internet Agency. I felt it was important for me to read every word of those 2 volumes that were allotted to us and understand the report. And so in my book, I spent my own money and did a credible synopsis. In it, I also have an excerpt from the Financial Times, which is 30 years of Trump's Russian connections. There's no doubt there is a link between him and Putin. No doubt at all. The article from the Financial Times came out on December 13th, 2016. When I wrote my book, right after the Mueller report came out, this was already 2019. I had no idea whether the Financial Times would give me the copyright to their story and how much they charge. But within 1 week, they got back to me, gave me the copyright, and assured me that as long as I didn't alter their content, I could use it in my book. My takeaway from shining a light on the Mueller report? Mueller wasn't going to do any trial of Donald Trump. He did commence investigations into 13 individuals, which I've cited in the synopsis, and he did lay out the impeachment of Donald Trump. Did Congress want to do it? Well, that's part of my story. I sent this book to everyone on the first impeachment committee. Nobody responded to me, not even my own House of Representative Congressman, Jerry Nadler. He never responded. And when I saw him during the summer, after I had given him the book, he really didn't want to know me, not even a little. But I was undeterred. I felt this was important. And when I got an invitation for June 21st to be at the AFL-CIO headquarters for a presentation from Nancy Pelosi to Maxine Waters, I said, I'm going to Washington. Nancy Pelosi didn't come in early that evening. No, sir. She waited until we were all sitting in a small room with a raised platform, maybe 10 tables in the room. That's it. I sat at one of the tables and I waited, and the lights went down, and Nancy finally came in. Took out 2 of my cards that show that I'm a real person, took out my book, which I intended to give her, and with the Secret Service standing nearby, I gave them both my cards and went over to speak to Nancy. I asked her, would she consider impeachment on Donald Trump? I told her that I had an online community of over 10,000, and at that time, Periscope was just being phased out and I was going to YouTube. But there was a lot of chatter saying people wanted to see Donald Trump impeached. And I told Nancy that I represented a large online community, and this is what we wished. And would she indeed use obstruction of justice as laid out by Robert Mueller? And according to the Republican Congress who drafted the laws on obstruction of justice, and according to Anthony Scalia, may he rest in peace, he had blessed those laws for impeachment. And Nancy Pelosi, after we spoke for about 10 minutes, she said, we'll see. I handed her the book. I told her how I felt that this was really not acceptable, and that when I say, we'll see, that means it's not going to happen. Did I ever hear from her again? Never. Did anyone on the impeachment committee ever write me a note saying, thank you for your effort, we appreciate it? Never. Was I disappointed in representatives to government? You bet, because I felt as a constituent I was entitled to at least a thank you. Fast forward, what have we got? In my book, my conclusions are based on the fact that I knew our elections would be impacted. I was concerned about the integrity of our democracy. As we know, our democracy stands. As we know, our elections are in trouble. In a lot of states, they've made voting very, very difficult. It's almost like they've resurrected the Jim Crow laws, and that's a pity. So I feel quite dismayed that nobody took the Mueller report seriously. Nobody went to the trouble to correct the lies of Bob Barr or anyone else in the media or on TV, and let the lies disseminate about the elections of 2016 and then in 2020. There's no doubt in my mind the insurrection of January 6th, that was no sightseeing tour. that was an insurrection. It was corroborated and talked about all over the media. And if one station decides to make it seem like this is a sightseeing tour or it's a whitewash of the dreadful happenings of January 6th, where several people lost their lives, that's a mistake. There were no good folks there. Congresspeople were huddling and scared for their lives. A noose for lynching Mike Pence was actually outside. That's not a sightseeing tour. Not when you've got all those alt-right groups coming together to cause mayhem, and they did. I couldn't even get into Congress or the Capitol with a friend of mine many years ago who was like an S-13, which is really high up because he worked in the Pentagon. And I remember going up to the gates of the Capitol with him, and we encountered a guard office, and we were told point blank, you can't get in. As a matter of fact, when my friend went to reach in his wallet to take out his credentials and ask again if it wasn't possible for us to even just drive in front of the Capitol, and this was about 2015, I think, they wouldn't let us do that either. In fact, they made him get out of the car and put his hands up on the car as if they were going to arrest him. This was a 75-year-old man. We drove away, saying, okay, they've got beefed up security. Capitol is not open for us. We weren't going to make any more fusses. They weren't even going to let us look at the Capitol from nearer by car. So what happened on January 6th is unusual. But what may happen in other states where the secretaries of state and the Supreme Court are not dedicated to the will of we the people, we don't know if the electoral vote will correspond to the people's vote. What's worse to me is that we have between 12 and 16 million people incarcerated at any one time in America. Those folks have all lost their rights. And 90% of the folks are not in federal prisons. They're in jail. So we don't even know if their cases have been heard, if they've been tried and found guilty. They could just be warehoused there because prisons in America are big business. So, goes to show you, where are our representatives? Do they want justice? Do they want law? Do they care about their constituents? Am I a constituent? Or am I only a constituent if I'm a large corporation with a lot of money and a lot of influence? I wonder if any of you are asking those questions. I'm asking them now because we have special primaries coming up, and folks have asked me to do petitioning. I've never done petitioning before, except for one person. That's Beto O'Rourke in Texas. When I went to Texas in 2018, I was in Houston doing door-to-door canvassing. But here, I've never done it. I've always voted my conscience. I feel voting should be an opt-out system. Soon as you're born, you're given a social security number. Everyone knows when you turn 18. And at that point in time, you should be able to get registered to vote. It should be automatic. Only if you want to opt out of the system should you be allowed to opt out. Because I'm hearing horror stories about people in other states who need to get an ID card and don't have the proper information. This is a crime. This is taking away our rights. So I'm asking, is the system working for you? Does your representatives respond to all your requests? And if not, I'd like you to write to me and tell me what your stories are too, because I'm going to have a couple of others for you in the next few weeks as well. Police reform is on my mind, and police reform, particularly in New York City, is on my mind. There's a lot to talk about. So see you next time, and we'll chat. Thank you.